Oh, island in the sun, willed to me by my
A tether is a derogatory term used towards black people of Caribbean descent who moved to North America. I kind of like the term because it has the word ether in it, which is exactly what I'm going to do in this video. So I'm going to ask the question, are you proud to be from an island? Or should you be proud to be from an island? Are you disloyal for leaving your island? There's nothing wrong with a little island pride, but my position is if the bosses left, why should the workers stay? Let's not forget, our ancestors were brought to the Caribbean as slaves. They were brought to be workers. They never intended to be there. They didn't have a desire to go. They were forced. They were taken against their will, and they toiled and sweated for hundreds of years. They worked to enrich their slave masters who made a fortune selling products on the global market that came from the labor of stolen Africans. Examples like the Beckford family that made millions off the sugarcane industry. And all that money went back to their mother country, England. The slaves were a free, exploitable source of labor in a capitalistic system that enriched the few at the expense of the many. The English, the Spanish, the Dutch, and many other European colonial powers used forced labor to generate wealth for their country. But nothing lasts forever. Eventually, these colonial masters packed up shop and went home. But my question is, if the masters left, why should the slaves stay? If the bosses took off, why should the workers remain there? Why do I have to be stuck on this tiny island when you get to go home? Yes, you get to go back to your mother country and I have to stay? So, after you've used me to make all this money, you leave and return to your land. So, let me get this straight. Our ancestors were dislodged and displaced, planted on a small island to work, and then abandoned after. Does this make sense? Why should I have an allegiance to a small piece of land surrounded by water just because my ancestors were brought against their will and forced to work there? Are you serious? And now I'm not supposed to leave? Why shouldn't I? If they left, why can't I? Why should I be stuck like Gilligan? And you say I'm disloyal for wanting to leave. Shame on you. How dare you? The master that brought me gets to go, but I must remain loyal and stay. So if I leave in search of a better opportunity, I'm a traitor. It was opportunists that brought me here. So why can't an opportunist mindset get me out? You see, the truth is, our ancestors stayed because they didn't have a choice. There was nowhere else to go. Yes, what else were they to do? They're stranded on an island. They couldn't go back to Africa. So they had to create culture there. They had to amalgamate different cultures and fuse it into one. Not just African culture, but Asian culture and East Indian culture and Native Indian culture were utilized to create an identity. Your beef patty was the British meat pie, and the jerk chicken came from native Indian pit cooking, and the weed so commonly associated with the islands, particularly Jamaica, was brought from India. Yes, the marijuana plant is not indigenous to the island of Jamaica. It doesn't grow there. It was brought there and planted there. And as for the locking of hair, it's debatable. Some say it came from India as well, while others contend it's from Ethiopia. So we should pay homage and respect to the creativity and ingenuity of our ancestors for creating culture. But we should never feel guilty for wanting to leave in search of opportunity. The one who was sold cannot be called a sellout. The one who was used for opportunity cannot be faulted for being an opportunist. And so what, I left the island. Where else was I supposed to go? So the issue now is, how can we all get along? Or can we get along at this point? When this one has a Spanish last name, and this one has an English last name, and this one has a French last name. And phenotypically, we all look different. Because now this one's lighter, and this one's darker. Now that we are all genetically modified, what's the common thread that will bind us together? Or is unity impossible? And we got other issues to contend with, because now other cultures want to come to the islands to build schools, educational facilities to teach the youth, which will further confuse the children, in my opinion. So we got bigger problems. So, because all it's going to do is give them a potential identity crisis when you indoctrinate them in different cultures, and they're just going to be more confused. So I want to say, do foundational Black Americans like us? And if they don't, why should they? They don't have to. They don't have to. Why should they be forced to? But did the same African Americans, particularly the ones from the South, do they know that they may have Jamaican ancestry? Are they aware that slaves were brought from Jamaica to the southern states and in exchange for American slaves that went to the islands? It gets deep now, a bit more complicated than we thought. African Americans and Caribbean blacks shouldn't have any beef whatsoever with each other. Not when American slave masters and Caribbean slave masters got along. They actually communicated with each other and exchanged methods on how to keep their slaves in check. So the descendants of slaves don't get along, but their former colonial masters did. So what are we beefing over, right? And to all my Caribbean people out there, especially the ones dealing with financial hardship, please, don't be too hard on yourself. It's not all entirely your fault. You see, sometimes you look at other cultures and you see the prosperity that they have, and this conjures up feelings of inadequacy, right? It creates an inferiority complex. You feel less than them because other people are thriving and they might have more money and they might be doing better. But the thing is, you have to remember that these people groups, they come from a continent, and your start was on a tiny little island with nothing. So many communities experience the benefit of transgenerational wealth inheritance, while we inherited high blood pressure and other genetic diseases. So take it easy and build slow. Cut yourself some slack, because you got a late start in a long race. But I want to urge you, my message today is, don't be ashamed of the historical circumstances that led you to be where you are from. It's not your fault. You had no control over the forces that shape the conditions of your life. But you do have the power to change your destiny and go in a different direction. And you can take your talents worldwide. Because wherever you go, you carry your island heritage with you. So don't forget that. So all the hard work, the ingenuity, and the survival that's built in your DNA that came from the blood of your ancestors that had to endure hardship, that is encoded within you. And that's what gives you the ability to be resilient and to survive. This is your strength. This is your superpower, right? So there's numerous examples of people of Caribbean descent, excuse me, or African descent that have taken place on the world stage and have represented well. People like Colin Powell, the former Secretary of State, God bless him. Or our very first male supermodel, Tyson Beckford. Or let's not forget Marcia de Cordova out there in the British Parliament. And there's many, many more people who have succeeded in foreign lands. So this is today's religious talk, asking you the question, are you proud to be from the island?